Meet Swampletics, my Morytania locked Ultimate Ironman. After recently maxing my Ultimate Ironman, I decided to up the ante, to forge my own journey from scratch. No banking, no trading, but this time, I can't leave Morytania. All leading up to eventually taking on one of RuneScape's biggest challenges, the Theater of Blood. Discovery. Think of this as my Morytania thesis, or my dissertation, perhaps. We're gonna tackle 3 chapters of discovery in this video. 27 Hunter is my single biggest obstacle ever. I intentionally didn't put the 2 Hunter level up in the previous episode because there was a lot of behind the scenes experimenting while getting 53 construction, all waiting to be put into one dedicated discovery episode, and so, here we are. There we go, 2 Hunter. The start of something potentially incredible. It all started with one comment. Someone by the name of Zaya Iron left this on one of my recent videos, and it had to do with future lamping of skills. He proposed a method in which you can force spawn random events using the Theater of Blood, one random within 5 minutes. The instructions were fairly simple: walk in, walk out, random event. I was extremely intrigued, so I tried it out the next morning. So if this really works, I should get a random within 5 minutes of leave. Holy shit. The second time it worked was when I got the genie for 2 Hunter. No way. It actually works. Oh my, there we go, 2 Hunter. The start of something potentially incredible. Yeah, you can imagine my surprise when I saw this worked. Thousands of possibilities coming to my head, farming maze randoms, quiz masters. 27 Hunter could happen in the space of weeks, but as expected, it wasn't that easy. The results weren't consistent, in fact, they were unpredictable. I tried several times to recreate the force spawn, but no matter how many times I tried, it wouldn't work again. I left the Theater of Blood area, I tried to walk, I tried to gain XP. The dream seemed to die pretty fast, but I didn't lose hope yet. If it worked once, clearly there was something here, something that could help me if I can figure out how it works. I started off simple, the basics. I needed to find out how random events worked, and to do so, I went to the most obvious place, the RuneScape wiki. For those of you who don't know, RuneScape random events were first introduced as an anti-macro prevention system. People who botted or macroed would be interrupted by a random event. Granted, they were much deadlier back then, there was no dismiss option, and in general, the events were just much harsher. But eventually, bots got smart enough to work around random events, and the events just kind of became an annoyance to legitimate players. So the dismiss option was born, and nonetheless, they're still in the game today, and serve as a nice reward to players who want them. After a quick look, I found out that there were 23 total random events that a player can receive, and 2 of these will help me level up Hunter. I messaged Mod Ash on Twitter and found that each random event does have an equal chance of spawning, meaning that I have a 2 in 23 chance of receiving an event that gives experience, or 8.7%. As Tedious points out in this thread, you also can't receive the Beekeeper random event on mobile, so I suppose I could get my chance down to a 1 in 11 if I wanted to. So, out of about 11 attempts to do so, I've been able to successfully force spawn a random event twice now, but this was after like a pretty long break from the previous one, so I figured that there was a cooldown written into the code, otherwise they would be way too annoying, but I need to figure out every factor that goes into force spawning a random event. I've boiled it down to 3 potential factors, keeping in mind why random events were implemented into the game in the first place. What would a bot do? The 3 factors are staying in one place for long periods of time, gaining XP, and routines and patterns or repeated actions. I also tried standing completely still after exiting, and I tried to do it with a group of people to see if population and proximity could influence events too, but once again, no luck. So I've reached out to some intelligent RuneScape minds to see if I can get a better understanding of how this all works, and several minds are better than one, so while I wait for responses and findings, let's begin Chapter 2. Temple trekking has a lot of encounters, 10 to be exact when doing Route 1. Combat encounters are the quickest because you're able to evade all of them on an easy trek. Puzzle encounters and trekking are the longest ones by far, so why don't we rank them real quick? The second quickest is the bridge event. In this you either cut 3 trees or kill 3 zombies to get planks or logs and finish off the missing pieces of the bridge, and then walk across to the other side. And now we introduce the villain of temple trekking, the bog. Let's put this into perspective. One entire temple trek is around 90 seconds on average. The bog, a singular event inside of temple trekking, takes around 80 seconds, and with some bad luck, some bogs go upwards of 3 or 4 minutes. It's insanely unbalanced, and every other puzzle event is under 30 seconds. Meanwhile, the bog is the encounter that really determines how many temple treks you can do per hour. With 600 hours of temple trekking ahead of me, we need to outsmart the bog. To begin the bog encounter, you need to use any weapon with a slash option on a little bush just near the start. This gives you anywhere from 2 to 4 sticks, and you use these sticks to test which tiles are soft and which tiles are firm. Firm tiles you can walk across, and soft tiles you will sink. Pretty simple. You use the sticks one by one on the tiles to get to the other side, so here's the theory. I believe that there is a set amount of paths in the bog, and with enough tracking, I could find every single one and create a system to speed it up. Okay, day 1 of bog tracking, I have created a folder called Bog Paths, and now every time I do a bog, I will mark it, name it, organize it. There are going to be duplicate paths, so I have to keep track, but this gives me a perfect opportunity to finish my goal for the episode, which is 55 Slayer. At 55 Slayer, I'll be able to use the Slayer Staff and cast Magic Dart, which has a max hit of 15 versus 13 of Wind Blast, so while this is a discovery episode, I can still keep climbing towards the Barrows setup. So I decided to tweet Ash to see if he knew anything about the bog paths being reversible, if paths from Berderot can be the same as ones coming from Paterdomus, and unfortunately Ash doesn't really know too much about temple trekking, so I guess I'm on my own there, but that's fine. So far I've tracked 32 unique bog paths. I've had a couple duplicates, but that's what's worrying me a bit here. I've had barely any duplicate paths, and so if there is a fixed number, there might be way too many for me to make an effective system out of. Also, these snakeskin vambraces, turns out they're not quite best in slot. As it turns out, Slayer gloves, which require 42 Slayer to wear, are going to be my best in slot gloves until I eventually get a combat bracelet. Look at that difference, it's actually pretty decent for, you know, a pair of gloves that cost me 200 GP. After about 10 hours of temple trekking, 50 to 55 Slayer is now finished. Oh, it's so satisfying, man. Slayer Staff unlocked, one step closer to the Barrows grind. That's awesome. So, 55 Slayer is completed. It's time for the final verdict. The system I had in mind for tracking the bog would give me an estimated 20% speed increase with completing it. I tracked a total of about 42 unique bog paths, and with this information, I started to design a tile shortcut system. The bog has 10 tiles on each side, so giving each tile a number, I can make a list of each starting tile and then map out each outcome. While doing trekking, I could refer to this system and skip checking certain soft tiles. So for example, if I was doing a trek and I see tile 3 is firm, I can refer to my list and see all the possible outcomes. After about 10 hours of testing this, I've come to the conclusion that the paths are procedurally generated, which was an outcome I knew was possible, but I hoped wasn't the case. There could be over 100 unique paths in the bog, and although some paths seem to be more common than others, the more paths there are, the more ineffective my system gets. It's clear that it just won't work for the effort that I have to put into it. In conclusion, this theory is busted. The bog is unbeatable. Or is it? As you might know, me and about 100,000 other old school RuneScape players use the RuneLite client to play the game. In a video made by Goody, he shows off some of the features of developer mode where you can activate by going to the properties of the client. I was very interested in the detached camera feature for cinematic reasons, so I gave it a shot, but something else caught my attention. The ground items feature. The bog would need to have different identification numbers for both soft tiles and firm tiles, and as I expected, the ground items feature does show the difference between the two. ID 13838 is a firm tile and ID 13839 is a soft tile. This is incredible. Not only do you save time checking all the tiles, but you don't even need to cut the branches off anymore. Oh my god, this is revolutionary. Holy shit. It absolutely was revolutionary. It cut down the average bog time from 80 seconds to about 10. It makes an incredibly unbalanced event reasonable, but there's still an ethical side to using the feature. Granted, there are RuneLite features that let you complete clues quicker or do certain PvM activities without thinking, and this falls into a similar category of an ethical gray area. Is it fair for me to use this? I'll need a little bit more time before I decide to use the feature or not, but it does make an incredibly unbalanced event reasonable. In short, you can beat the bog. I just realized if you take a really close look at the mud, it actually spells something out. I decided to jump straight into the town of Sleep for Chapter 3, the town of many mysteries added in June of last year. Most of what Sleep has to offer is quite obviously for some upcoming quest in the area. There are so many interactions that go nowhere, a dungeon with multiple interesting characters, item spawns, that going along with the fact that the entire city of Darkmare is still inaccessible. I'm hoping for a Grandmaster type quest to come to this area soon, as it holds so much potential. One thing I did find is this cheese spawn though, which I found in episode 1, but it didn't really hit me how useful it was. This is my only way of getting cheese, along with hobgoblins dropping tomato seeds and being able to buy pineapples from charters. I am actually able to make pineapple pizza from scratch in Morytania once I hit 65 cooking. A food that heals 22 hit points. Very, very interesting for the future. That's about all for my Sleep exploration session. Let's move over to Tarn's Lair. When I was researching drop tables in Tarn's Lair, something pretty interesting popped up. The wiki lists these guys as having only ashes on their drop table. That's the only thing they drop, or so they say. I've decided to go on my main and test this theory out. So my first kill is blood runes, and I've already gotten things like herbs and an iron kite, so definitely not only ashes. I don't think anyone has touched this drop table. I ended up doing a total of 250 kills and recorded close to 55 unique drops. Hey, Rune Scimitar number 3, that is, yeah, that's 250 right there. That's the final kill of my experiment. There's not really that much useful on this table, but it's just hilarious to me how unexplored this piece of content is after the several years that it's been out. I'm sure there's still stuff to find that I just don't know about, so. The wiki listed one singular drop for these monsters, and funny enough, the one drop the wiki did have listed is incorrect. They drop bones. So, I reached out to quite a few people, and I got 0 health, so I'm on my own. I tried a ton of random stuff when it came to the Theater of Blood force spawning, but trying to consistently recreate the results seemed impossible. But it got me thinking about the logical reason as to why it works. It really shouldn't be unique to only the Theater of Blood, as there is nothing unique about it. With that tiny revelation, I got an incredible idea. See, I don't need to spawn random events every 5 minutes, that's just not necessary. The average random event spawn time when doing random activities is like 75 to 90 minutes. So 5 minutes is a luxury, but by no means is it a necessity. Let's go over the infamous 10-month period that I stated for 27 Hunter a while ago. By my estimates, I should have 27 Hunter by October, and this is the rate that I decided before any kind of force spawning came into the mix. I objectively picked the worst area when it comes to lamping skills. Temple trekking is a big portion of the content in the area. A huge part of that 10-month period is delayed by the fact that I'm gonna have to spend 600 hours in temple trekking, a minigame where I cannot get random events. But with what I've learned so far about instances and how they work with random event code, I could speed up this process. Temple trekking checks 2 out of the 3 of our boxes, all 3 of them if I decide to stay still after exiting the instance. Temple trekking gave me a ton of hope as a force spawner because of the experience tomes. I could get a ton of experience in a short amount of time, adding to the fact that I'm in an instance. It could work. While I was tracking the bog, I was also testing temple trekking as a random event force spawner. Alright, if I get it here, this will be number 4 in the session, so I will take that as conclusive evidence that this works. Hahaha, yes. This is incredible. I was gonna be so upset if that didn't work, but oh my god, this is, dare I say it, this changes everything. My current theory is that the large amount of experience gained in a short amount of time, in addition to being in an instance for X amount of time, has something to do with this method's success. It checks all 3 of the boxes, although I'm pretty sure box number 3 isn't necessary. I decided to do one session where I tested this multiple times. I varied up the amount of minutes spent temple trekking in each one, but the bottom line was that I was able to get 4 random events in a session of 163 minutes. This means on average, I was getting an event every 40.7 minutes, much lower than the average of 75 to 90. Which means that during my 600 hours of temple trekking, instead of receiving a marginal amount of events, in theory I should receive about 884, of which 77 should be XP randoms. I could get 27 Hunter by June, which could mean attempting the Theater of Blood for the first time around August. I managed to get 2 XP randoms during this video as well, so I'm now only 2 lamps away from 3. With that figured out, it's time to get prepared for Barrows.